From the moment the first whisper of trouble surfaced, this story felt different. It was not just another headline flashing across screens. It carried a weight that settled into the hearts of people far beyond Tucson. I followed every official briefing from the Pima County Sheriff's Department, every careful word shared by the Guthrie family, and every confirmed update reported by national outlets like CNN, NBC News, and the Associated Press. By Sunday evening, February 8, 2026, 8 agonizing days had passed. What began as concern had turned into a collective ache. At the center of it all was one chilling truth. Nancy Guthrie, an 84-year-old grandmother described as mentally sharp but physically fragile, had vanished without the medication she depended on daily, and no one could say for certain where she was or whether she was safe. More than a headline, Nancy was never just a missing person report. She was the emotional anchor of a tightly bonded family, a widow who rebuilt her life after losing her husband to a sudden heart attack and who raised 3 children with steady devotion. Friends described her as joyful, deeply faithful, and quick to laugh. Though her body had grown frail with age, her spirit remained fiercely independent. She lived in a quiet single-story ranch home in Tucson's Catalina foothills, a neighborhood known for its wide desert views, towering saguaro cacti, and a sense of peaceful distance between homes. It was the kind of place where neighbors waved from driveways and evenings settled softly. That feeling of safety shattered overnight. The idea that someone could vanish from such a setting left the community unsettled, as if the desert silence itself had been disturbed. Fragility and urgency. Nancy relied on a walker to move around her home and manage several chronic health conditions, including heart disease that required a pacemaker and strict daily medication. Doctors emphasized that missing even a short window of medication could trigger weakness, confusion, or severe cardiac complications. From the first hours of her disappearance, investigators understood that time was not neutral. It was working against her. This was not simply a search, it was a race. Each sunrise without confirmed contact tightened the fear. Her family knew her routines intimately. She was careful, consistent, rarely spontaneous. The absence of her medications from the house spoke loudly. Whatever had happened, it had happened quickly. For an elderly woman with limited mobility to disappear without essentials was not just unusual, it was alarming. The medical risks transformed the investigation into something intensely urgent. The night? Everything changed. The timeline began with what seemed like an ordinary Saturday evening, January 31st, 2026. Nancy had dinner with family before being dropped home between 9:30 and 9:45 p.m. She entered through the garage with her walker, and by 9:50 p.m., the door had closed behind her. Her phone showed no unusual activity afterward, and her pacemaker monitoring application transmitted normally for several hours. Then, sometime between approximately 1:45 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. on February 1st, the signal abruptly stopped. The monitoring connection vanished. That narrow window, less than an hour, became the center of the investigation. It was as if time itself had a fault line. Something happened in those early morning hours, something that silenced the technology meant to safeguard her life. That silence became one of the most haunting elements of the case. A home-turned crime scene. Concern escalated Sunday morning when Nancy failed to attend church, something friends insisted she never missed. Calls went unanswered. By midday, relatives entered her home and found it empty. Deputies responding to the 911 call quickly determined this was not a routine welfare check. Signs of forced entry were documented, along with small amounts of blood inside the home and reportedly near the porch. Within hours, the residence was declared a crime scene. Sheriff Chris Nanos addressed the public, stating investigators believed Nancy had been taken against her will. The involvement of federal authorities soon followed, including agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The rapid escalation signaled seriousness. This was not a wandering senior scenario. It was being treated from the outset as an abduction, and the tone of every briefing reflected that grasp. The search across the desert. By February 2nd, large-scale search operations were underway across the rugged Catalina foothills. Ground teams moved carefully through desert terrain. Helicopters circled overhead. Drones scanned washes and arroyos. Volunteers canvassed neighborhoods, while investigators reviewed doorbell footage, traffic cameras, and license plate reader data. The effort was exhaustive and relentless, yet no clear suspect vehicle or escape route emerged. Evidence inside the home strongly indicated Nancy had not left voluntarily. The absence of immediate answers only deepened the tension. Medical experts continued warning that health decline could begin within 24 to 48 hours without consistent medication and hydration. The desert, beautiful by day, felt unforgiving under scrutiny. Every rocky trail and quiet cul-de-sac became a potential clue. But as hours turned to days, hope and fear began to exist side by side in painful balance. Messages that complicated everything. On February 3rd, reports surfaced that several media outlets had received communications claiming responsibility for Nancy's disappearance. The messages demanded millions of dollars in cryptocurrency and included details about her home that had not been publicly released. Authorities confirmed that the communications were under active analysis, but did not verify their authenticity. Whether genuine or the work of opportunists exploiting national attention remained uncertain. Still, every message was treated seriously. The possibility that Nancy was being held somewhere introduced a new emotional layer: hostage negotiation rather than search alone. Cyber units began tracing digital pathways. Behavioral analysts examined wording patterns. The public watched closely, aware that misinformation could spread quickly. The uncertainty surrounding the messages made the situation even more fragile, balancing between criminal investigation and delicate negotiation strategy. A family's public plea. On February 4th, Nancy's children released an emotional public video appeal. Sitting shoulder to shoulder, visibly exhausted yet composed, they thanked supporters and pleaded directly for her safe return. They asked for proof that she was alive and expressed willingness to listen if contact was made. The message traveled quickly across social media, drawing national and even international attention. Community vigils formed in Tucson, where candles flickered in desert twilight. Churches opened their doors for prayer. The family's words were not dramatic, they were deeply human. By February 7th, a second video acknowledged receipt of a message and stated publicly that they were willing to pay for her safe return. That declaration shifted the psychological weight of the case. It was no longer only about finding her. It was about buying precious time for an elderly woman whose health hung in the balance. Investigation without rest. Throughout February 8th, search operations continued without pause. Deputies, federal agents, K-9 units, and volunteers expanded search zones miles beyond Nancy's home. Cell tower data, digital footprints, surveillance systems, and blockchain activity tied to ransom messages were analyzed in painstaking detail. Hundreds of tips poured in daily. Most led nowhere, but none were ignored. Behind the scenes, negotiation teams remained on standby around the clock. Behavioral experts studied communication patterns, while cyber specialists traced encrypted routes. Every effort aimed at one outcome: bringing Nancy home safely. Yet, as medical experts publicly cautioned about the increasing risks of prolonged deprivation of medication, the urgency intensified. Questions multiplied with each passing hour. Was she still nearby? Had she been moved far away? And most hauntingly, how long could her body endure without treatment? A community holding its breath. As the 8th day drew to a close, Tucson felt suspended in collective anticipation. The case had grown beyond geography. People across the country were watching, hoping, and praying. Nancy Guthrie's disappearance had become a mirror reflecting vulnerability, of aging, of family bonds, of the fragile illusion of safety. She was not a statistic. She was a grandmother who loved her church, her desert sunsets, and her children. The machinery of investigation moved tirelessly, but beneath it all was something deeply human. A family waiting for a call, a knock, a sign. Even in uncertainty, compassion spread outward. Neighbors supporting one another, strangers offering prayers, officials working through exhaustion. Whatever the final outcome, this story had already revealed something powerful about community, resilience, and the fierce love that refuses to surrender hope.